Welcome to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Thank you for tuning in this episode of The Real, taking time out of your day to come watch this episode. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe for me. I'd really appreciate that as well. That's the best way you can support this channel and help me grow my content and grow this channel to where I'd like it to be. Everybody hit the like button for me on the way in on this video today. That also helps promote this video more in the algorithms, helps grow this channel more as well. Please share this content. I would really appreciate that. My guests would as well. If you would please share this episode with someone you know that maybe is interested in the topic we're talking about today. Please leave a comment below as well. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback. You can interact with myself and the guest on the panel and the live chat as well. Whatever we're talking about, just leave a comment there in the live chat. Pop in and say hello. We'll put it on the screen for you. And yeah, without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome back to The Real Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman, my lovely co-host tonight, Michael Antonace. Mike, how you doing on this cold Sunday night?
I'm doing good. Just watching some foosball. Watched the Cavs obliterate the Hornets a little bit earlier on, so it was good. Cavs have won 10 straight, so yeah, I'm glad the Brown season is over. On to the draft.
Yeah. Yeah, the worst Brown season of my lifetime that I can remember is finally over with. Thank gosh. But welcome on in here. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, and share. Like we said, leave a comment below and comment live in the chat and let us know what you guys think about today's topic. But well, let's get right into it, Mike. Like you just said, the Brown season is over. It's officially done. The 2024 season is over. Thank gosh. What a roller coaster of a season. Depressing as a fan, and somebody even just covering is depressing. Let's see. He said, "Let's go, Buck." You know, he's been waiting all day for this. Let's go, Bucks! Fire those cannons. Thanks for watching, Mike.
I was at B-Dub, so I was watching against my will. But yeah, I was on.
We had multiple games on though.
Multiple games. Yeah, the Panthers-Falcons game was really, really good.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. Penix looked all right, but
yeah.
Now we got this one on right now. The Lions and the Vikings. That looks pretty interesting. So but yeah, let's get into it, Mike. The Browns. Obviously, the season's over. We're not even gonna talk about the game. Honestly, what's the point? I don't know if you watched that game.
No, it was pointless. It was a tanking game.
Yeah, it was a tank game. I didn't even watch it. It was terrible. But you know, we wake up this morning though, Mike, and we have some breaking news, and that is the Cleveland Browns have fired offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey and offensive line coach Andy Dickerson. Not surprised by either one, Mike. I don't think you are either.
No.
Andy Dickerson's pretty much fired already for the last month and a half.
Yeah, exactly. He hasn't been the offensive line coach for some time.
Yeah, with Mike Vrabel stepping in and coaching, and you saw in the Hard Knocks, you had Roy Estevan in there leading the meetings and stuff too. So it was kind of a telltale sign. Ken Dorsey, same thing, was brought in for the Deshaun Watson thing, which Joe Patonio even said today out of his own mouth. And obviously when Deshaun went down, Kevin Stefanski handed over the play calling to Ken Dorsey for Jameis Winston. Also in the ESPN report this week, it became pretty apparent to me in that report as well that Kevin Stefanski and Jameis Winston really weren't seeing eye to eye, or just didn't. I don't think Kevin really, not like anything personal, but they just didn't really click in terms of football stuff, which now makes sense why he turned over the play calling when all that happened. So
yeah,
reaction to the firings, I'm not surprised. Like I said,
no, not surprised at all.
The biggest thing for me, the biggest domino to me that has to fall for the Browns is Paul DePodesta. I would say that on this show for a while. I've done 3 hours of content showing all his impact on the organization for the last 10 years, almost since he's been here, or 9 years now. It's pretty apparent. He's been pretty much labeled without being labeled as the president of football in some ways. He's had his hand in everything. He's the first guy out there giving the draft pick, reacting to the first round picks outside the year John Dorsey was here. And so that's the biggest domino to me. Now, according to some people, like Anthony Lima, 923 The Fan a month ago, I didn't know this. I came across this the other day, and some other people have mentioned this as well. It seems like Paul DePodesta is being phased out of the organization almost completely. Haslam spoke about it back in August. His contract has one more year left. and that they would like to lock him up, and he has a big part of the organization. We'll see, but he was kind of bland about it. I think he's the biggest guy that has to go. And once Paulie Podesta's out of the way, I think now when I watch the press conferences today, Mike, I just feel like a lot of guys who look relieved, but also Kevin Stefanski looked a lot more confident, and it looks like he has the full reins back now. Kevin Stefanski did not want to fire Alex Van Pelt. That's pretty apparent. Last season, he was forced to by the
He's
organization.
available now.
Yeah, he's available now, and so there were a lot of the changes that were made in the last year, really the last 3 years, in my opinion, were not in Kevin Stefanski's hand. I don't think he wanted to do that. A lot of those changes, and I think now he's going to have the full reins more than he's ever had, really, in his 5-year tenure. I think this year him and Andrew Berry will have the full reins. I do think there's a chance they possibly put a president of football operations above Andrew Berry, maybe like a Louis Riddick, there's been like a rumor going around. Maybe he's meeting with the team and all this and that. I don't know what's real, but
Right.
I could see that happening to kind of basically replace DePodesta in a way. But that's the biggest thing, my takeaway going in this offseason. The first thing that needs to be done to me is making sure Depot's out of the way, get him out, and let these two guys and maybe a president, if they want to hire one, a football guy, and restore order, get the proper alignment organizationally, and then we can start talking about personnel moves and all that. In terms of the offensive coordinator stuff and the coaching, I think Kevin Stefanski's personality, to me, he's a more mild-mannered guy, which is okay. But you got to have some hard coaches around him, especially your O-line coach has got to be probably the most loudmouth, hardest coaching guy on your team. He's got to push that unit every single day. He's got to be rough, rugged. He's got to be intense. And so they didn't have that last year, obviously, with Andy Dickerson. Andy Dickerson was more of a, hey, guys, what do you think? Were years prior with the great Bill Callahan. Bill Callahan was a rough-nosed coach, get in your face, challenge you. And guys responded to Mike Vrabel better this year. Roy Estevon. I think DeJuan Jones even hinted at that he felt better with the coaching he was getting from Vrabel at the time. And you kind of saw it in DeJuan's play this year, too, before he got hurt. He looked out of shape coming to the season, not as prepared as he did as a rookie. And I think a lot of that to do with coaching in a way, just pushing them and getting them prepared. But also, you got to have that in that room. And I think you got to have hard-nosed coaches around Stefanski. So whoever they hire as OC, I think, has got to coach the quarterback position really, really hard. Because the O-line and the quarterbacks, the two position groups, you got to coach harder more than any other group on the team.
Well, I think the biggest thing too is they're going to go back to that old thing we all know and love, where they're going to go back to wide zone, more traditional West Coast style offense. They all pretty much
more gap scheme running.
Yeah, they all alluded to that, so that's going to help the O-line a lot too. I mean, even Jack Conklin was talking about it, saying, "Hey, all the people that we brought in were brought in for this particular scheme." And Joel Bitonio basically, like, as to your point, what he was saying, either like we tried to put the whole offense around an individual, where we should put the whole offense around the team. And I thought that was pretty telling, which, by the way, was the most professional way of calling out a quarterback I'd ever seen. Good on Joel. But
I think the whole organization, I mean, not Kevin Burley, I think the people that made the decision too, I think he was calling out, kind of like it was a slap in the face to him and the guys. And it's like we said on the show this all year is that the personnel did not match what they were trying to do. And he even said that today. We're playing out of position. The running scheme it was a horrible running scheme. That's not the only guy they brought. They got the run game coordinator they brought from UConn. He needs to be fired immediately as well, and which I'm sure he will. They're just probably got to wait whoever they hired as the OC and then decide if he wants to retain him or not. But I think, like I was saying, the fish my point I'll hand it off to you is I think they got to get a hard-nosed coaches in there, especially the O-line. That's like mandatory. But they got to get somebody in there that could develop quarterbacks, in my opinion. I think, and also mesh with Kevin and expand that offense. And you brought up a name today when we were out. I think Clint Kubiak. He's probably going to be available. I think Clint Kubiak's probably the obvious choice at this point. Seems to coach guys hard. I think he could develop quarterbacks. We all know who his dad is. He's got a good pedigree there. And I think him and Kevin come from the same background, obviously. I think he's the obvious choice. And so that's the first order to me. The first thing they got to do this offseason is for their plan. It's a title of today's video. Obviously, Myles is going to hear that plan. What will be the Browns off-season plan? I think number one is they got to get proper structure and alignment in the organization and get the right people in place so it can all work together and players can develop. Especially this draft is going to be very important. If you're taking a quarterback, you're taking whoever. You got to make this the right environment for guys to come in to flourish and develop and have the right structure. Why did Bo Nix come out of nowhere this year and look good in Denver? Because he was in the right structure in Denver. Denver has the right alignment and structure and proper coaching in place, and culture and the way and their style and their philosophy. That's why. You put Bo Nix somewhere else this year in a shitty organization. If you put him in Cleveland this year, or you put him in Chicago like Caleb Williams, he would not have succeeded as well. And so that's the first thing to me, Mike, is that they got to get the organizational structure down first. But that's kind of my opening monologue, Willie. But your take, Mike, though, on today's firings and then that part first of the structure.
I think the structure is pretty well in place. I like the Brown structure as it is. Deep Podesta, like you said earlier, has kind of been phased out. So, I mean, the structure as it sits is what you're going to see. Andrew Berry as GM and president of football operations. They might give Catherine Ricci a expanded role this year. From what I've heard, they're going to do a lot of internal.
Well, I've seen her name brought up in possible GM candidates too. Albert Breer mentioned her, but
she's potentially. More than likely, they'll want her to take a more advanced role. If anybody out of the Browns front office gets hired as a GM, it's more than likely Glenn Cook, who had interviewed several times with several different teams. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's hired somewhere. Teams really like the cap manipulation. I know people have been critical of Andrew Berry's drafting. Andrew Berry is hit on 35 to 40% of the players he's drafted, which is above league average. Considering he hasn't had a first round pick for 3 of his years, and that's the biggest minus on his resume is the Deshaun Watson trade, which is a big minus. But as far as the firings go, Andy Dickerson hasn't been the O-line coach for some time, and Ken Dorsey, was brought in to be the, Deshaun Watson whisperer, as it were, like make a offense that was suited for Deshaun, and Deshaun just looked awful in it and couldn't read the field. So now that what you have at your quarterback, the Browns now just have to reallocate. It's really not going to be that hard. The personnel that won you 11 games for the most part is still there. You just got to add to it and go back to that old, West Coast Kubiak style offense, but while also adding some things. And speaking of that last name is, one of the names I would like to see is Clint Kubiak. I think that would be a great win. Him and Stefanski obviously have the same philosophy, but different approaches. Clint could add things that would fit seamlessly into Kevin's play design. I also think he is a great eye for quarterbacks, considering we probably are taking one in the later rounds. The Browns now own the 2nd overall pick. And to all the Browns fans that may be watching, this isn't a quarterback draft class to just pick a quarterback because you need one. The Steelers did that in 22 with Kenny Pickett, and you got to see how that turned out, right? Like, it's just not that draft class. Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward are the 2 best quarterbacks. I just don't see them as top quarterback prospects. It makes more sense to trade down from that pick if you can, get some more picks in the year, or take one of these defensive blue chips and just use this draft and free agency to find a veteran, maybe a draft pick of a quarterback you like in a later round that is can kind of just run the offense. But really, that's all this team needs to be successful. They don't need the Browns never needed a incredible quarterback to be competitive. They win based off defense and running the ball. That's been their identity, and they just got to go back to that identity. Get a couple of running backs, add a blue chip defensive player in the first round and like solidify that side of the ball and make it super easy for either a young late round quarterback to operate the offense and win games, or make it easy for a stabby vet who maybe is good for a little bit, but also he can't throw a ton, like a Kirk Cousins, because Kirk Cousins kind of fell off this year after the Falcons were forcing him to throw a ton, which is surprising that was their offensive scheme considering their run game. But yeah, I think I don't think this I don't think it's even a rebuild. That's not the right word. I think it's a retool this offseason, and I think things can turn around relatively quickly.
I think going back to my point what I was making earlier, I'm gonna keep keying in. For me, the biggest thing to me is the organizational structure, just how they're aligned, the philosophy. I think that's where if there's any rebuilding, the major rebuild is going to be in there. And I don't. A lot of people say, well, a lot of people will say, well, that means you got to fire the coach and GM, which I mean, a lot of people I know wanted to be done, but they didn't. I think Haslam didn't want to do it mainly because of perception. That's just my opinion. I think he's more worried about perception and doesn't want to be known as the guy to fire people again and blah blah blah.
Yeah, and also like Kevin Stefanski is known nationally and within the NFL as a good coach. Like he would have a job the next day.
I've backed off of Stefanski a lot more as
Yeah.
the season went on because I started to see more and more kind of the hand he's been dealt. Now, in some ways, though, I think where Kevin's got to be, where I would like to see Kevin be a little more alpha in a way, a little more pushback, which maybe he has internally. I think he kind of has silently. You know, the ESPN article mentioned something when you sent me that one picture of it. It said how he's kind of like a one player inside the locker room. So he's very good at being kind of like strategic in how he operates and almost kind of like he sends messages in a weird way. Like he's, what's that picture you sent me the other day from that article? They phrased it perfectly, and it really does match him. Right here, give me 1 second, folks. This is from the ESPN article that came out the other day. And Mike, you sent this to me. It was right here. It says this is a quote from a player. Where does the quote start? Another praised his demeanor in a tough season and noted, quote, you might not always know what he's thinking, but he's so methodical. And that's kind of what he is. He's a very methodical coach. Like he's not gonna be as direct and open as some guys like Vrabel or a Belichick or guys like that. He's very methodical, and he's gonna get his point across one way or another. People are gonna know what he's thinking, what he wants, right? And so that's kind of who he is. That's just his personality, which is fine. But the players seem to really like and respect him. The respect's the bigger part to me. I don't think they've quit on him. I think, well, you know, Myles Garrett's comments and all that's really more directed, like he said, to the people upstairs, not to Kevin Stefanski. I think Joel Bitonio really backs Stefanski today as well. And so that's good. And I'm all for Stefanski if they want to keep him, as long as they have the right alignment around him. Because I still think he can work, especially in today's NFL. I mean, it's not it's not the greatest of coaching pools, in my opinion, nowadays. It's not like what it used to be. Like we knew 10, 20 years ago where you had to have a great coach. And you always had to have great. I mean, coaching's important. We know that. It's probably the most important part. It's the start. But, you know, the foundation. It's the start of everything to your team. But I think Stefanski, to me, was not the biggest problem all along. It's been more upstairs with Deep Podesta and just kind of the philosophy that's hung over the organization. Now, when it comes to Andrew Berry, he's been kind of like the middleman in a way, where I don't think Andrew Berry's had the full say on his drafts. And I don't know if we really know what an Andrew Berry team really looks like fully, because I don't think he's had the full reins and aligned with his head coach. You know what I mean? Like usually your GM, like at Denver, George Patton and what's their head coach? Sean Payton are in alignment, right? They have those two get together. Obviously, they got John Elway's like a president and a football guy, and they all just stay in alignment, and you see kind of what they're building there and how it's working. That's what the Browns need. They need somebody like that. They need Andrew Berry, who comes from a good background. You read his background in his you know, like his when you read him on like Wikipedia and stuff like that. Worked with Howie Rosen. We worked with John Dorsey here. Had a big say in those drafts with John Dorsey, who I thought were the best drafts we had. And in terms of hitting like big time players. And so I think him and Stefanski, as long as they work together, I think they got to get, to me, a football president in there, a guy above them that to me, Andrew Berry's just a guy who I think he's just fine and is okay with just doing his job as a GM. That's what he's built for. I think they need a guy that can work with both of them. It can really be the football dominant guy and kind of liner, but maybe Louis Riddick would be the guy. I think Louis Riddick would actually be perfect because I think Louis Riddick is very well respected. You even saw what Deion Sanders wrote about him the other day, which is kind of interesting. But I think Louis Riddick has a passion for the Browns, has always defended the Browns. You could tell when he's been on ESPN at times, has love for the Browns, always got the Browns helmet behind him. If that is true that they met with him, which you never know, and there's some people out there who have some credible sources who are saying that they think there's smoke there on X. We'll take it for whatever you believe it. But a guy like him, I think, could work perfectly with those two because Louis Riddick's a smart guy, but he's also got the background of football as well, and he's got a good balance. That's what they need. They need more balance. And I think once they get that structure down, now you can build out the rest of your staff, bring in more hard-nosed coaches, and now you have a proper organization to draft and develop guys. So that's why I keep hitting on that. That's to me, that's the biggest thing they got to do first. And then, like you said, going back to personnel moves, I think probably looking at a veteran quarterback, you got to bring in. Yeah, I don't know if you saw the report today. They were talking about in Minnesota. Looks like they're going all in with JJ next year. That Sam Darnold actually might be available.
I'm out. He's going to command way too much money.
You think he's doing too much since you're out on Darnold?
Yeah. And here's the thing, like, he is having a great year. No hate to Sam at all. I'm glad he's having a great year, turning his career around for the most part. But there is that chance. Like, I have no doubt he could run our offense, but there is that chance that this could be a fluke. I want to see Darnold do it a couple years, but like, even if he is a free agent, he's going to command money somewhere. Somebody is going to sign him to a $35 million a year deal, which to me is too much. I wouldn't pay more than 18. If you can get Sam Darnold on a 2-year, $36 million deal, 18 million a year, sure. That's not that bad. I'd do that.
I think the Browns could get that done. And you know why I think they can get that done? Because I think Darnold has learned more than anybody how important fit is, right? He was a guy that went the shitty ass, the Jets when they were shit and still are organization.
Oh, they were really bad though. That was Adam Gase's Jets. That was a different kind of thing.
It's not a place for a rookie quarterback. And then he goes to Carolina. Good luck developing there when they used to be. Now they look a little better now, but back then, you know what I mean? Like with Baker, that was a terrible place to develop. He goes and sits in a great organization in San Francisco for a couple of years in the right system that fits his skill set. And you see when he develops, you see what he becomes. Some people in San Francisco believe they probably should have kept him. I thought they should have too, because Brock Purdy is not great to me. He's not winning a Super Bowl. He actually lost you a Super Bowl last year. But you see when he gets in the proper line, proper development, what he starts to become, and then he goes to a good organization in Minnesota. It's pretty well ran and got a great coach and Kevin O'Connell, who teams are trying to trade for, according to Jay Glazer, because they don't know if they're going to pay him.
Oh, that was straight from Kevin O'Connell's agent. That's all that was. That was the like, hey, it's time to pay me.
He's going to be demanding some money, though. I don't know if they'll pay it. I mean, they're not used to paying that kind of money up there. But yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely from his agent. But
yeah, they'll pay his ass.
But you see what like him, guys like Justin Fields, this year just in Pittsburgh alone, they know how important now that is. I think they'll take. Obviously, you want to get the most money you can. Obviously, that's the goal. As a player, you should. But I think fit is going to be very important. And if the Browns have the right, again, going back to that, what I was just talking about, if they have the right everything in place, it looks good. I think he might take that 18 because I think he's going to think if I go and ball out, he's only 27. So he thinks, man, if I go there and play well for another year, they'll probably extend me maybe if I have another great year. And so I think a guy like Darnold could be in play because, but again, it all goes back to the first part for me. They got to get all that down first. But go ahead.
Right. It's a possibility. I mean, with Darnold, yeah, I mean, if he'd be willing to agree to like a $18 million a year contract, I feel like that's very fair. But I really think he's going to try and get the bag, and I don't blame him for trying to get the bag. I mean, if somebody's willing to pay you, Sam Darnold, who was previously looked at as a draft bust, 30 plus mil a year, maybe more, take it. You know what I mean? I don't know if there's going to be a team outright. I wouldn't be surprised. I know there's the Raiders have talked about it. I know the Titans have molded over. There's a couple of teams floating around that would entertain the idea. For me, I'm looking at more of like a Malik Willis, who is, still under a rookie contract. He, much like Darnold, has been in Matt LaFleur's system, which has seemed to work with Malik Willis very well. He's more athletic than Sam Darnold.
In some ways to the others, to the Kubiak system as well.
Yeah, very. Yeah, Matt LaFleur is a very West Coast Kubiak style. Malik Willis, you're only going to be paying him his base rookie pay, which is that of a third-round pick. He's, like I said, more athletic than Sam Darnold, doesn't turn the ball over, can run the offense, and he's progressed a lot. I would be more apt to taking someone like that, or even you mentioned Justin Fields. I wouldn't mind that at all. Someone a little bit more athletic who can do similar things that you can get cheaper, because I think the biggest thing is going to be you're going to spend your money in free agency and in players that are going to make your quarterback's life easier, and that is legitimately just everything surrounding the quarterback. Maybe you pay Josh Myers from the Packers, the center, and Dan Moore, the left tackle from the Steelers, or maybe you're paying, a wide receiver. It's a huge wide receiver free agency class, but I think really they just got to solidify the defense. I mean, with the top 5 pick, you get one of if we stood pat at the second overall pick and we picked Abdul Carter, I wouldn't be upset. I don't think any of us would be. If we stood pat at 2 and picked Mason Graham, I wouldn't be upset. I don't think any of us would be. But
oh boy, Teflon Don. Well, I got shout out to Teflon Don. He's in here every week showing us love.
Thank you, Teflon.
Browns need to get it together. This staff will draft another slop, fire them all. And he came in with his classic one. This makes my dad laugh every week. Can't stand how to see they are always cheeks. Everything's always cheeks.
But
shout out to you.
Yeah, I mean, I really think the Browns will have be very flexible in the offseason with free agency and the draft. I think they're going to be flexible on that pick. They might be willing to trade down because, they're not going to trade down with a team unless they know who that team is picking. So they'll probably have 4 guys that they're like, hey, these are the guys we'd be willing to pick in the top, 5, what have you. But I really think it'll be able to turn around, especially with the chance to draft a blue chip player. Because that defense was it was decent this year. The previous year it was unstoppable. You draft someone like an Abdul Carter, you go back to very close to unstoppable.
Well, here's how I think you help your defense. Number 1 is what Myles Garrett said from the jump, one of his initial comments a month ago, was it, or 3 weeks ago, whatever that was, when he first came out. Have a running game, right?
Yeah.
Like, have a running game and an offense that can milk the clock. The defense was out there way too much this year. Way too much.
Oh, yeah.
And especially early on in the season.
Right.
And it's because of the shit offense. And I mean, it's the worst offense in the league by far. And I think Myles said it, Joel says it. They all know it. They got to get back to that, because the way to help your defense out, and history's shown that too. You look at that, Mike, back in 2020, and you look last year, we made the playoffs. Both those 2 years were our best 2 years running the ball, especially 2020. We had a dominant, obviously the best duo in the league with Hunt and Chubb. But guess what also happened those 2 years? Your defense was better those 2 years out of the 5. And so let Stefanski go back to running his offense. I think, like you said, I think Clint Kubiak's an obvious choice to me for OC.
I like Clint. I wouldn't even be opposed to them bringing Van Pelt back. It would be a little awkward, but
yeah.
I wouldn't even mind that so much. There are a couple other names.
What are some other names that you've read?
Josh McCown, which should be a very familiar name. Yeah, should be a very familiar name to everybody. Good quarterback developer. He is currently the quarterback's coach for the Packers. And I think not only could he be an excellent OC and help you develop a quarterback and pick a quarterback for that matter, but he has been instrumental in Green Bay's front office, because, Green Bay's ran by a board, right? It's owned by the city of Green Bay, so there's not like necessarily like a regular like draft process.
He had the same role in Carolina too, and he wanted Stroud. And they didn't listen to him. You undertook Bryce Young, who's starting to look better now, but he wanted Stroud.
Yeah, but I really think that Josh McCown is a unique name. Mark Brunell, who's the quarterback's coach right now, also former quarterback.
Who?
Mark Brunell.
Oh, Mark Brunell. Sorry, you cut out there. I was making sure we got.
No, it's fine. Yeah, Mark Brunell, who's the quarterback's coach for the Lions, I think would be a pretty good OC candidate. There's a couple. Those are my top three. I would say Brunell, McCown, and then Kubiak would be at the top of my list just because he is currently doing the job and he's doing it at a high level, but he is more than likely going to be leaving the Saints as they are hiring a new head coach this offseason. I'm sure they would like to keep Clint Kubiak, but he's probably going to look elsewhere. So he's definitely at the top of my list, and I think it makes the most sense, especially knowing the relationship that Kevin and his Clint's father have, and how even Kevin knows Clint decently well, like helped him. Clint had talked about in the past how Kevin Stefanski was a huge influence on him, helped him out while he was like working in college and all this other stuff before he transitioned to the NFL. So I almost think that's almost a done for certain deal.
It reminds me a lot of Ryan Day, Chip Kelly at Ohio State.
Yeah. It's almost like
where the Americans they know each other. I totally agree. Clint would be my first choice because I think it's the right fit.
Right fit.
The guy with the Lions would be my second choice. I wouldn't mind pulling anybody from that coaching tree just because how they coach hard.
Yeah,
standard.
And Brunell's an interesting choice. He's actually last on my list just because he's a little bit more soft spoken and he doesn't talk to the media a lot, and it's a hard to gauge like how involved he is. I know for a fact how involved McCown is, but and that Packers coaching tree is just looking better and better unless your name is Nathaniel Hackett. But
I think to me, the last point I'll make on the coaching, I think just as important as a hire as the OC is going to be the O-line coach / run game coordinator.
I agree. I think they might keep.
That's going to be a huge hire because the guy they brought in from UConn, he's got to go. He didn't work.
I think the OC will basically do that. They're going back to how it was before, and basically, if they're going back how it is before, it's going to be Kevin's run game with something sprinkled
in. They got to get a guy
like
Bill Callahan was a big part of that, bigger part of that running scheme than people realize. He was a run.
I wouldn't mind just
you got to get
Roy Isban, who's in the house, as used to that. Worked under Callahan for many years, used to the wide zone scheme and the West Coast offense. I wouldn't be surprised. And also there's familiarity, and the offensive line room seems to really respond and like Roy Isban. I wouldn't be surprised if he isn't just promoted internally.
I can see it. What do you think of Tommy Rees? Could he possibly get promoted as the OC? Because Kevin they asked Kevin today about are you going to interview guys internally, and he said yes.
Yeah, I think Tommy Rees is an interesting would be an interesting upgrade because Tommy Rees, that hire always like confused me, right? Because I was like, so they hire Ken Dorsey to be the OC, and they hire Tommy Rees, who is more of a Kevin Stefanski offensive philosophy. I mean, you saw the offense he had at Alabama. It's very much run first, run heavy, West Coast style, play action, a lot of pistol, not like what Ken likes to do. So, I mean, Tommy Rees would make sense. I just think if Clint is available and wants the Cleveland job, I don't think they say no to him.
I think Clint's the better fit. I think Tommy Rees, if Vrabel goes to the Patriots, I think Tommy Rees is going with him. I think that's
I would agree with that. But if Clint gets like a head coaching job, I could see them just keeping Tommy. I think that would be a pretty good hire. I would be happy with that. Because again, it aligns with Kevin Stefanski, but also Tommy could help institute more pistol sets, which Kevin wants to do really bad and has tried to do, but hasn't necessarily had the quarterback to do it with.
Well, that's the biggest thing is that they got to form their identity structure, like in the organization. Like I said, then they got to go to their identity
Got to run the ball.
offensively. Yeah, they got to run. They got to get back to their identity
Got to
and
get
make
back
it.
to that old thing.
And then you got to realize, we'll go to the last, or then you got to get to. We'll get to the last part here about the number 2 overall pick that the Browns officially have now. You got to realize what kind of quarterback you want. Who's going to fit your system? Joel Bitonio made a great point today that the best that offense ran, he thought, was with Joe Flacco, because, which we all know, it doesn't take, all you got to do is watch it. Then take a swami to figure it out, because Joe Flacco is an actual pro-style quarterback, 6'6", big arm, who also will be available too if they need a bridge guy, maybe. I don't know. But Flacco
we'll see how Kirk Cousins' arm is feeling in the offseason.
I'm out. I can't do Kirko. I'm sorry. Maybe 1 year. I don't know, man. I just
It
can't.
would be a 1 year. It wouldn't be a multiple. Like any vet quarterback we pick up is going to be a 1 year, unless Darnold wants to come for 2 for 18, like I was saying earlier.
Yeah,
I agree though. They need a pocket passer, but I don't mind somebody who has legs that can run it if
I
the
don't
play
mind,
breaks
but
down.
I don't want an ass. Here's what I don't want. Here's what I think the NFL has failed, and here's what I think a lot of these people online too that do quarterback evaluations. That I'm just be honest, not taking shots at anybody, but a lot of you guys, I really question your evaluations. You don't want an athlete that plays quarterback. You want a quarterback that's an athlete per se.
Right.
There's a difference in the two. Let me repeat that again if it skipped your head, people listening. Mike knows what I mean, because I've said this to Mike on the phone all the time. But you don't want an athlete that plays quarterback. You want a quarterback that's an athlete. And the NFL, and especially people in the media, when they do their scouting, they tend to go to the latter, which I think is wrong, which is why you're seeing a lot of guys flop and a lot of guys, you can't just expect to draft a quarterback and then throw him in an organization and save it. It's just a fallacy. It's not, especially the wrong organization. It's not going to work. It's never going to work. It never has. And so, to me, they got to figure out what kind of quarterback they want. And then if you look at the draft up at number 2, the, based on what we know their offense is probably going to be, I don't think Cam Ward's definitely not the quarterback you take. I know people are infatuated with him because he can throw the ball deep. I personally don't think Cam Ward, he misses too many layups. If you really watch his tape, if you know how to watch the tape, he misses way too many layups, isn't great in the pocket, runs up into pressure a lot, evades the pocket a lot, tries to go for the big play a lot. Now, he's a very talented kid. He's got a great arm talent. I give you that. He is a hell of a talent, and I think he could flourish in the right spot and system. But I don't think it's going to be in Cleveland. I think he's too small as well. He's only 6'1", 6'2". And I'll be honest too, I didn't like the whole sitting out of the second half thing. That kind of brought me the wrong way, and I'm gonna stand on that. That just didn't like that. But he wouldn't be on my board. Okay, I'm not taking Cam Ward in Cleveland. I don't think he would fit. I don't think he'd really want to be here. Shador Sanders. I think Shador probably could run the system better than him, because I think Shador could play under center more. But Shador, to me, I have question marks. He's not very he's not. I don't mean a guy that can run all over the field. I mean, in terms of his mobility, especially in the pocket, he's a little slow to me. Can throw the ball. I don't know if you'd want to be in Cleveland number 1, but also I just, there's a lot there with him. You're drafting more than Shador Sanders, and I just don't know if that fits either. I don't think that's what the Browns need in their locker room.
I'm not in love with any quarterback in this draft. I'm not
I'll be
looking. If
honest
I'm
with
the
you.
Browns,
If there's one guy that came out in this draft, he'd be my QB1. It'd be Drew Aller.
I agree with that.
Drew Aller. Now, I wouldn't throw him out there right away, but if Drew Aller was drafted to Cleveland, if they're in that system that we expect him to run and go back to, you sit him for a year and develop him. Drew Aller could be the guy you need going forward. He has all the capabilities. He has the size, the athleticism, the talent, the arm strength, pocket awareness. The ball. When you watch Cam Ward's tape and Shador's compared to Drew Aller's, the ball comes out of Drew Aller's hands a lot faster, and he makes a lot more of the intermediate throws. Makes a lot more NFL throws to me. Now, I think going to Penn State, to me, I watched Drew Aller in high school. I watched him play against Stowe. I watched him his whole high career at Medina High School. I think he didn't go to the right school for quarterback development. I mean, you tell me a quarterback in our lifetime, Mike, Penn State's developed in the draft.
In our the last quarterback to pick out of Penn State. Oh, what was his name?
Who was like a legit quarterback, like in the NFL? Who was a legit starter to come out of Penn State in the last, let's
I
say,
mean, there
10
was
years?
none, but
Especially under James Franklin. Who's done it?
oh, not under Franklin, no. But
Nobody. That's
there
what I'm
was
saying.
somebody that got picked in the first round in the 90s. I can't remember his name.
I know. I'm saying in the modern era, like
I
in
know.
our
You just got
recent
my
years,
brain.
under James
Nobody.
Franklin, who the hell has been developed at quarterback there and been a solid NFL starter?
Nobody.
Or even a backup hell, even a backup. Nobody.
Nobody.
And so I think he needs to go to a place to develop for a year. And I think the talent is still there. He was a lead 11 guy. He's got NFL talent written all over him, like what you want, pro style, just like Batonio said. To me, he'd be my obvious choice for the quarterback for the Browns.
Yeah. And that brings up, the 2026 draft class, which I think is going to be laden with quarterbacks.
Loaded with more pro style guys too.
Yeah, I mean, you got Drew Aller, who I would like. Cade Klubnik's the same kind of quarterback, and I really like him too.
Nico, Lele, whatever his name.
Yeah, Nico out of Tennessee. I mean, just a plethora of guys. Nussmeier with another year might actually like work out to be something. There's a ton of guys, and the Browns will have the opportunity to trade up if they'd like, if they fall in love with one of those guys. So, if I'm the Browns, I'm not looking at a quarterback until pick 93 at the earliest.
Unless Drew Aller comes out, I'm not taking a quarterback.
I agree. Until pick 93.
Now,
to pick 93, pick 104, sure.
Yeah, you let me looking at a Will Howard if he continues the ball out. I think Will Howard, I think he actually could do well in the system, and he's been developed pretty well in college.
You pick Will Howard with your 4th round pick. I'm not going to be upset at that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work if he can run the offense and he's a surprise.
And
if he's a Dak Prescott, great. You found your quarterback in the 4th round.
To me, he's the most Bo Nix possibly in this draft. Jackson Dart's interesting too. I mean,
he's got some.
He's got the talent.
Travis Hunter says Co. Thank you for the comment, Co. Travis Hunter is an interesting prospect. I just don't know what he would be at the pro level. If he's going to be a DB, I don't see the Browns picking that unless they trade back and he's there. But
do you think they're going to trade Greg Newsome?
Well, if they trade Greg Newsome, I think they'll just either pick someone later. Because let's think about it. If Greg Newsome's been a pretty much slot corner, right? I could see us picking like a 6th round guy. I mean, there's a ton in the 6th round. Kobe Bryant and Mello Dotson both could do it out of Kansas. Both of them are Jayhawks. I really like them. Jamari Harris out of Iowa could do it. There are a bunch of slot corners in this draft. So if they wanted to trade it to get an extra like day 2 pick, but I wouldn't. He's a wideout. I don't know if he's a wideout at the pro level.
I think he could be whatever the hell he wants to be. I'm a lot higher on Travis maybe than Mike. We talked about this at the restaurant today.
Yeah.
If I got the number 2 pick, man, it's hard for me to pass. And I've seen people say he's not an elite corner, he's not an elite receiver. I think you're absolutely crazy.
That's where I'm at.
I don't. I think you're not. I think this dude, he's one of those guys you could just leave him on an island. He can cover a whole half of the field. He's so rangy. He's so long. He's so fast. He's so. I'll tell you this: he's the only guy in college football that can guard Jeremiah Smith. Not saying he'd shut him down, but he's the only guy that can run. He's the only guy that can hang with him. Maybe Will Johnson, but Travis to me, he's different. He's an elite talent. He's a rare talent. I think what he's probably going to be in the NFL is he's going to play mainly corner. He's a natural corner, lockdown, can cover a lot of the field. Obviously, he was trained by arguably the greatest corner of all time. I think he's probably going to play about 20 snaps, maybe more a game, depending on the game. I think he's a pretty good receiver too. He was open actually, and I'll tell you this: when you watch that Alamo Bowl game, whatever, he was open a lot, and the ball was not getting to him, and he was pissed off that game too. He was getting into it, Shador on the sideline going off, and it happened a bunch of times this year. Really, he gets open, he creates separation, and he's got a hell of a catch radius too. When he gets down the field on a deep ball, sideline, his body control, the dude is an elite talent. It'd be really hard for me to pass on him at number 2. Abdul Carter to me has got to be.
He's a franchise level
that's
defensive
what he's got to be, which I get. Now, to me, this goes. Here's where I think this all lines back to, Mike, because I think you and I both agree we're not taking a quarterback most likely, right?
I agree.
And so you're probably looking at Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Mason Graham.
Team trade back.
Mike Hall to me, I think, showed enough this year where I think if you're going between Abdul or Mason, you probably lean Abdul because you need an opposite of Myles. But that's the name of my brand is Myles Garrett. If Myles Garrett, what number one, what's your thoughts on Myles Garrett? Because I think he's the biggest.
He's not going anywhere. I really
You don't
think
think he's going anywhere? Because to me,
no. I think it's
he's the
very
biggest. I think he's the biggest wrinkle on what you do at number two. Because
right. I really
if he is
think
traded, obviously you're taking Abdul Carter because you need that edge. But if he's not leaving, I may tend to lean a little more Travis Hunter. I'm curious your thoughts on Myles.
yeah. No, I don't think Miles is leaving. I think that was more a like, hey, I'm not going to be part of a rebuild as far as like a teardown, like firing the coach, firing the GM. Miles as in to reporters behind the scenes and in front of reporters in front of cameras been very vocal of his support for Kevin and Andrew and how he likes both of them in their respective positions. So I think that's more what that was. Um, he wants a plan. He wants to make sure that, the offense is going to be going back to what it was. But I think in the exit interview, it's going to be made apparent to Miles that, hey, we are going to be going back to what works. We're going to be focusing on, the run game like we used to. We're going to get a vet in here. We're going to win a bunch of games. We're going to solidify the defense. And once
Were
Miles
you
hear that,
what do you think? Miles has a lot of miles on the tires now. I would trade him injured a lot the last few years. Your thoughts, Mike?
you don't trade Hall of Fame players. You don't trade franchise players. That's like saying, hey, I should trade my roof because it's got a leak in it. Like, no, it doesn't make any sense.
Did he play every game this year?
Yeah, he did. And he only missed like a game last year. And he's only getting better, Like every year
Oh,
he
he's in
gets
his prime.
better.
He's in his
Yeah.
prime right now.
He gets better every year. And you don't trade
Him and
that.
Jim Schwartz have been a good
That's
marriage.
what the Browns used to do. The Browns would trade all of their good players and just see them turn into amazing all-pro level players elsewhere. Demario Davis is a perfect example on the Saints, all-pro level linebacker, one of the best linebackers in the NFL, probably a Hall of Fame talent. And the Saints have gotten so much mileage out of him because the Browns just gave up on him. That's not what you do. It doesn't matter. And that you could get a lot of picks for him. None of those picks might turn into a Myles Garrett. The percentage of players that it takes to get to a Myles Garrett. I mean, think about this. Patrick Mahomes was in Myles Garrett's draft, but nobody blinks that the Browns took Myles number 1 overall because of how good Myles is. Like,
yeah,
you don't trade that away.
Here's what I think's going on with Myles. I'm not going to say I'm 50. His body language has been great, and obviously, I think what he told Mary Kay is you shouldn't expect me to have great body language too after he lost. Here's what I think about Myles Garrett and what all this going on with him is I think there's a big power play going on behind the scenes. I think like this I've talked about on the show all year. A lot of other people have started reporting it. Other YouTubers have called it out. We all know what the biggest problem was inside the organization, and it was Mr. San Diego. And he's the biggest one, the biggest domino. His philosophy, everything's overshadowed. Myles has been here since the jump when that guy came here. And so I think what Myles is really saying is, I want to see your plan, obviously, but what is your plan? And how are you? I think he wants a good evaluation of what the hell are you running off of? Like, what are we going? You know what I mean? Like, what's your philosophy? I think he wants a deep dive. And also, if you look into the Browns organization, why I think there's possibly a power struggle going on behind the scenes that I think Myles and others are winning is because if you look at who the director of football operations is, his name is Tyler Hamblin. Why did I bring up Tyler Hamblin? Well, Tyler Hamblin, just bring it up, his wife, Tyler Hamblin's wife, again, Tyler Hamblin's a director of football operations. His wife is an executive for Clutch Sports. Clutch Sports is Myles Garrett's client, agency. Is Clutch Sports ran by Rich Paul and obviously LeBron. And so I think there's definitely a power struggle going on. I mean, director of football operations is a pretty big role in the organization. And I think Myles knows what they need. I think a lot of the players knows what needs to change. I think Haslam kind of hinted at it when he was asked about Deeped's possible extension back in August. He was kind of bland about it. I think they all know what needs to happen. I think it has happened, hopefully. And so I think now, I think Myles will get the contract he wants here because
Oh yeah,
he's
highest
gonna
paid
get
ever,
an insane amount of money here.
highest paid defensive end ever. That's what
Yeah,
he's going to be.
he's gonna get some a shitload of money, and
Deserve it.
I think as long as they put a good plan together, I think that'll be. It's hard to trade a guy like that in the middle of his career. You're never gonna get obviously equal value. And I don't know, a lot of teams. I mean, they know when they trade for him, they got to pay him that kind of money too. There's a lot.
Yeah,
Those are very.
and real
That's not
quick,
like when people at the deadline were saying, "Oh, well, he's just going to get traded to Detroit or what." That's not never. That would never happen. That's these kind of deals with guys like Myles Garrett. Those deals take almost months at a time to work out. Those are like
yeah, that's
major
like
deals.
3 first-round picks. Like that
They
is
take a long time
minimum.
to negotiate.
That's what it would take. And I don't know what the I respect where you're saying, but his sack numbers, he was tied for most in the NFL this year. He finished second because Trey Hendrickson got one more sack. He was number 1 in tackles for loss, number 1 in QB pressures, while also being number 1 in double team. So, I mean, I don't know where you're getting your numbers from, brother, but
Let's get somebody's comments here.
yeah.
Mary Kay's Mouthpiece Organization. I would get a 1 and a 2 for Myles.
That would be
While you
way too
can,
low.
he's not getting any younger or more valuable. Browns will be the Ravens or Bengals because they have great QBs.
We've beaten the Ravens and Bengals multiple times. We beat the Ravens this year with Jameis Winston.
No, we all agree we got to get a quarterback. Obviously.
No, we all
You want
agree, but
a franchise quarterback.
yeah,
Rose in the house. He's always bringing the jugs. Barkevius Mingo has more Super Bowl rings than Myles Garrett. Shout out to Britain, a new viewer. Appreciate you for tuning in,
thank you,
Britain.
Britton.
Myles is 29. His last 4 sack numbers are 16, 16, 14, 14. He is still one of the highest double team edge rushers in the league. You trade him, you will not be able to replace him. I agree.
That is my thoughts exactly.
Because
Thank you, Britton.
As great as a prospect Abdul Carter is, I don't think he's
I don't
not
even think.
he's not a
Yeah,
Myles Garrett type of
no.
prospect, which is why I'm not
Abdul
like
Carter.
he's not an automatic pick for me at number 2. But
He is for me. He's my number 1 defensive player in the entire draft. But even then, I think his high sack numbers are 8 to 10. I don't think he's a speed rusher. He's got a good over under move and a good swim move. But he doesn't have a lot of. He's not nearly as powerful as Myles Garrett. He's not nearly the athlete that Myles Garrett is. He's just the best defensive player in this draft. I think he's the biggest no-brainer pick. I certainly don't think Abdul Carter is on Myles Garrett's level. Now, could Abdul Carter become a Will Anderson, a Daniil Hunter?
who's the cat? Who's the cat in Baltimore from Penn State?
I don't. He's definitely going to be better than. Are you thinking of Owe?
Well, yeah, was it? Well, he had a good rookie year. Who was the guy? Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Never mind. Go ahead. Sorry, I missed.
Oh, it's fine.
Thinking of somebody else another time. Let me think about it. I'm trying to think.
But no, Abdul Carter, I think, would just be a great piece along the line with Myles. I think he's a great, player that you can put on the defense. You have 5 years of control, and that will probably take you through Myles's second contract or near the end of it. So, like, if Myles gets to the point where like he's ready to retire, you have someone who is going to be going on their second contract who is at least still a premier pass rusher. Now I think Myles probably his second contract's probably going to be 7 years. Wow, Cam Akers just broke off one of the biggest runs I've seen. That was the most important play of the night. Sorry about that. But
I was thinking of. Go ahead. You make your point. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, but I think the biggest thing where the Browns meat potatoes are going to be is almost going to be outside of round 1. Round 1, best player available. Round 2 through 7, pick the players that you need or players that are best. Because like in the round 2, I'm picking, in my opinion, I'm picking best running back that's on the board. That's just me. Like best running back that's on the board, bell cow back. Somebody that, God forbid, if Nick Chubb comes back and isn't the same, you feel good about being in that backfield and being your whole offense.
Give me Scatabo. Scatabo. Give me Scatabo. He's gonna be on JB's show tomorrow. Shout out to Coach JB.
Oh.
A big great interview. No, I was thinking of. Remember 2022? Alex Highsmith with the Steelers had 14 and a half sacks that year.
Oh, he could definitely be. I think Alex Highsmith is
could he be like the complimentary piece to Miles? You know what I mean? Where you can get maybe 10, 11 sacks, maybe more. Obviously, you would hope.
Yeah, his pressure rates are going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. But
especially getting one-on-ones all the time because Miles.
Yeah, for sure. And I thought Denzel Ward today too made a great point. He said him and Miles are like Shaq and Kobe, which
I
is
love
kind of
that
why
quote.
too. Travis is in play for me more than Mike has him. I'm higher on Travis than he is. I think when you have a guy like Myles Garrett up front that creates so much pressure on the quarterback, and the D line, I thought has some depth they can work with moving forward. Some younger guys they can bring along, but I think if they can generate more pressure front, when you have a guy like Ward on one side who obviously has injury history as well, you got to consider that. But if a guy like Travis Hunter's on the
was
other,
healthy all year this year.
well, there's still some concerns there. We all know that. Love Denzel, 330 guy. I'm from love Denzel. I'm not you won't find a bigger Denzel supporter than me, but there is concern there with the injuries always. But I think him and Travis opposite of each other with Miles rushing could be very dangerous too. That could be pick city. That's why I don't know. It's intriguing. It's intriguing, but again, I think a lot of it depends on what Miles does.
Again, I think that's it's been overblown a little bit by the media. I really think he's gonna stay. I mean, it was more of a wake up call for the front office guys, but
he's
the biggest thing is
he's definitely trying to flex something though.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he wouldn't speak out if he didn't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's definitely something he's trying, and I have no problem with it because I think somebody's one problem with Haslam. We all know is Haslam. He's always listening to too many people and too much influence at times in over his tenure here. It's good for a player like Miles to stand up, and you see a lot of his teammates backing him. Basically, like what Denzel said, I'm gonna look over his shoulder. We hear Batonio said, they're all in agreement. They all know what the hell's going on, and so it's nice to see a guy flex his power a little bit to get maybe what they all know the problem is out of there. So I have no problem with it, and it needs to be done. That's just how that's just how bad it's been, especially this year. I mean, especially when you have a guy, your franchise guy, saying who was part of 0-16, saying, "Man, this is worse than that." We got to really fix some things. So, but yeah, I mean that's
Johnson, Cam Scatterbo.
I like Cam Scatterbo. I mean, Caleb Johnson's great too. I really like this Cam Scatterbo kid. I think he's the kind of guy to me. Scatterbo to me seems like the kind of guy that would just embrace Cleveland and become part of like your cultural pillar, like in terms of just like just embodies the city, wants to be here for a while. Because that's important. I think the Browns need that. They need more alpha leaders, I think, in that locker room, veterans, and really in the organization as a whole, more alpha guys, more leaders. And I think they need those guys that when you draft, especially in a place like Cleveland in their market, you got to draft guys that, I know I'm going to piss some Brown fans off with this, but it's just facts. Why Pittsburgh's been successful in a lot of ways. It's because they draft guys that fit the organizational mold, the guys that embrace Pittsburgh, i.e. Cam Hayward, guys that have been there forever, Pouncey when he was there. Those are the kind of guys you got to draft, guys that will embrace your city, be all in, and want to stay here for the whole career. Character, that's why when you hear a GM say character a lot, it sounds kind of overblown. But I think that's kind of what they're hinting at. And so it's like when you look at the Cavs team in the NBA right now, they drafted guys that have all embraced Cleveland, right? They all meshed together, and they were just a coach away. And so now you see the result of that. And so I think that's what the Browns have to consider drafting as well. If you really want to build this thing up and build it strong, you got to start drafting guys that really buy into your city and fit your mold and what you want to do, because that's how you build a successful, sustainable organization long term, which we have not done yet since we came back. But we got some more comments here, Mike. The offense was terrible with Kevin and Dorsey calling the plays. Yeah, I think that offense is definitely being torn down like we saw today with those moves of firing the two guys. Lamar and Burrow are Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Miles is Mr. 15 sacks a year and good, but not going to pay dividends in the end. and end up being a waste of money because you aren't winning games. I don't. It's just this isn't the quarterback class that I mean to be trading Myles though. Mike, if you're trying to get a quarterback, you know what I mean.
We wouldn't trade Myles to begin with, and I've legit watched
this ain't the
Myles Garrett
quarterback.
impact games to win by getting like a game-stealing safety or blocking a field goal, jumping over a center to block a field goal. He basically won that Colts game by himself last year. Myles Garrett directly impacts games.
One, if you're going to trade a guy like that for a quarterback, this ain't the class to get it.
Was that
not? I said if you're going to trade if you ever would trade a guy like that because you're trying to get more assets to go get a quarterback in the draft, there's no quarterback in the draft worth doing that for.
I just watched Jared Goff throw the worst turnover I've ever seen.
He said hospital work compared him and Garrett to Shaq and Kobe. Only difference is Shaq and Kobe won championships. Did Boo Berry and have Ray Farmer text Dorsey to tell him he's fired? Nah, he ain't going nowhere.
Andrew Berry is our GM of the future. Harrison Smith, I wonder how many picks that is for him. Future Hall of Fame safety on the Vikings.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything else that you would like to add, talk about?
No, I mean, we're kind of getting a lot of the main things tonight. Who do you guys think in the comments real quick before we get out of here? Who do you guys want them to take at number 2 as of today?
Yeah, if we stayed at number 2, who do you want them taking?
Who do you want them to
second
Who
overall?
do you want them to take? What kind of, well, as we get some comments here, I'll ask you this to finish up. What kind of package do you think it would take for them to consider or lure them out of number 2?
I'm at it really depends on where they're moving, right? Like you know, if the Giants want to move up or the Raiders or someone like that. If the Raiders, who are at like pick 6, want to move up, I'd have to have like an extra one the following year. If the Giants want to move up a spot, I'd ask for like maybe like their 2, maybe a 4. And here, Andrew Berry is so good with trades. I really think, besides the Deshaun Watson one, besides the obvious elephant in the room, I really think that they'll be smart with it. But it would have to be a good amount, and at least getting another day 2 pick for this draft, I think, would be super important. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I suspect them to do it. But yeah, that's what I would see. If they're going to stand pat, I'm still just team Abdul Carter or Graham. I'm happy with either or.
Well, the first thing for me is who's making the trade. I know you're a lot higher on Andrew Berry than I am, and I'm not anti-Andrew Berry. I'm not like hating on the guy or anything. I just think, number one, I don't know how much. I just think a lot of guys have been, you know, I am. I think a lot of guys have been hamstrung because of one guy. We all knew that. I'm talking about Mr. San Diego. But if he's phased out, I still want to see a president of football operations in there. I think they need that. I think they need another mind in there, a football guy. If the Louis Riddick stuff is real, I'd be all for Louis Riddick. Like I said earlier, I think he would mesh very well with these guys. I think he's the perfect mind. I think he's very well respected. Deion Sanders likes him a lot too. I don't know if that would put Shador here, although he said recently, although Louis Riddick said recently he would take Cam first, which I don't like that either. But
I don't like either. That's quarterbacks.
Yeah, I don't like either. But no, Lewis may not do that if he took the job. Who knows what he would do if that's even real. But I still think they should look around for that, regardless, even if it's not Louis Riddick. That's number one. But it would have to be a hell of a package for me. I just think there's some damn good players up at that top of that draft, that especially at number 2, even if it's not like we said, you're not taking a quarterback. There's some good defensive players there. A Travis Hunter, a Mason Graham, and Abdul Carter. Those are guys that are franchise pieces to me. That's what the Browns need. They need a guy, a for sure thing, because not everything else is guaranteed. Myles isn't guaranteed. A lot of this stuff's not guaranteed. That's a guarantee. It would have to be a hell of a package to trade down. And the only way I would trade down is I'm still in the top 8.
Yeah, they're not trading down to like 20 or the teams.
Yeah, I'm not trading
unless it's
18
insane.
Or 12. Go kiss my ass. I'm not doing
that. Yeah,
that.
no, that's not going to happen unless like the package is nuts. Like it would have to be nuts. And I don't think anybody's going to do that.
Or it would have to involve a big player. like a player.
Yeah, if the Jets, who are like, I think they're at pick 9 after today. If even then, it would have to be nuts. It would have to include like a Quinnen Williams or something crazy like that on top of like their first and another first, which isn't going to happen. So like, I think the most the Browns would probably trade out of is the Raiders pick, which is 6. So.
Well, I'll put the order up here real quick. Actually, here's the actual draft order so you guys can see it.
Oh yeah, after today, they might be higher. They might be.
Here's according to Tankathon. Can you see that?
Yeah. So, I was right. Yeah, the Raiders are at 6. So yeah.
Yeah. So you got Tennessee number 1, the Browns number 2, Giants number 3, New England number 4, and they just fired Gerard Mayo. Oh, by the way, we got some breaking news during the live too. Tyreek Hill, his quote
requested a trade. Yeah.
Yeah, he said, "I'm out." So, where do you think Tyreek Hill ends up, real quick? He's back to Kansas City.
No, actually, I think that bridge is pretty much burned. Wow, that's a good question.
That's interesting.
Buffalo?
It might be too cold for him.
And they won't trade him in division either. Never mind.
Oh, that's right. They got to trade him too. Ooh, man.
Well, he just signed another extension this year, which makes it very difficult to trade him.
He might be a guy that sits out.
Yeah, he might have to be at this point. He might be one of those like gets traded to a shitty team. I mean, Washington, maybe. I mean, they're not a bad team. I know I prefaced it with traded to a shitty team.
I was just thinking Washington with Terry McLaurin. That might be
Washington might be able to do it, and because of his contract, the trade compensation probably isn't going to be a lot. Probably be like a day 2 pick at most, maybe a day 3 pick, even like a 4th round pick. Just because of his contract is nuts. So,
we got. But going back to draft, Tennessee 1, Browns 2, Giants 3, New England 4, Jacksonville 5, Raiders 6, Jets 7, Carolina 8, New Orleans 9, Chicago 10.
So close.
And so,
all Tennessee
San
had to do
Francisco at 11 is pretty interesting too. Man, I mean. I look at that top 8, Mike, because that's where if we trade back, that's where I'm going to stay. Obviously, you're trading back. You're probably somebody wants Shador or Cam. So New York sitting there at 3. I could totally see them taking one of the 2. And the Vegas, obviously, number 6 is the obvious. Those are the only 2 teams I see, Mike, that would draft
I think
one of
Vegas would definitely try and move up, especially if especially if Tennessee goes quarterback. You're going to put Vegas in a really tough spot. You might really be able to get away with a little bit of a fleece job there. And if you do trade back,
Shador, not to cut you off, I think Shador to Tennessee is a real possibility.
I mean, if that happens and Cam Ward's available,
I'm just saying
I still
that based off of some stuff I heard from people from on the Colorado last week out there to cover the team and know the Sanders kind of well, that's a real thing to me. Well, go ahead.
Right. No, I was just going to say, I think it's a really real possibility that Vegas calls the Browns about that pick because, I mean, here, I doubt. I think Tennessee's going to take a quarterback. So if you can get a king's ransom because you're like, hey, the Giants are going to take a quarterback, and you can get their 1, their 2, which is a very good 2, and then next year's 1, and then like a player, like if you can like get.
What if the Giants panic? What if the Browns put out signals they're going to take the next best quarterback, and the Giants panic and call for an offer? What do you think they would have to give?
I'd still think it would be because if Vegas is calling, all right, in this crackpot scenario, right? Let's say Vegas is calling, they're going to take the quarterback. The Giants hear that, or like Cleveland calls them and is like, hey, we have this call from the Raiders. We're going to accept it unless you counter. And, the Giants probably would, and if they are that high on what the Cam Ward, what have you, or Shador, maybe you back them into a corner. It would be this kind of the same thing. They're 1, they're 2, another 1, and a player, and you'd only be moving back a spot. And the player you could ask for is a pretty high value piece. I'd I'd ask for something like a Dexter Lawrence or Andrew Thomas. Then a 1 there too, and next year's 1, I think would be fair. And on the reverse of that, like a Bowers, Crosby, a 1 and a 2 and a 1. And if they didn't want to include a player, they'd have to give. If I'm the Giants, I'd have to give another 2. If I'm the Raiders, I'd have to give up their 3 this year. So like, just get as many picks as you can, and you're still moving back a spot or 2. And that's why I said I think the Browns are going to have 4 to 5 guys that they would feel comfortable drafting in the top 5 to 6. And here, if 2 of those guys are taking quarterbacks, you expect New England to go Travis Hunter, Jacksonville to go Mason Graham, and then you would have your choice of Carter or someone else. You're still going to end up with a blue chip player. So,
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. It's gonna be a hell of an offseason, that's for sure, Mike. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, and share because we're gonna have it all covered for you all offseason at length. We'll have some more guests up here. We're getting the heated debates as well. That's coming, Mike. So we have a good time though. We also have some other shows. Mike's got his show. We got the fix as well. We'll get into that in a minute, but we'll get some of these comments first. Baker should have been voted to a Pro Bowl this year. Baker had a hell of a year.
yeah, good for him. Yeah, quarterback.
Britton said he would take Abdul Carter. Rule said he's taking Greg Little. Trade down to 22 has worked out so well in the past. I actually agree with you on that, Rule. I'm not.
Yeah, well, if they're trading back, it's not. Don't worry, it's not going to be that hard.
Yeah, no more Operation Stockpile. We ain't got time for that.
Yeah,
Dan Quinn is Coach of the Year. Jane Daniels is Rookie of the Year. Jane Daniels is probably definitely Rookie of the Year, right? I mean,
yeah, I think that you might give Coach of the Year to Kevin O'Connell, though. I don't see how you don't.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Quinn's done a hell of a job. Sign Josh Gordon, he'll light it up. Raiders will sucker Barry by including Jim Plunkett in the team. Yeah, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and share. Like we said, we're going to cover all things Browns. And don't forget, we got some other shows in this channel as well. Mike, you got your first or third episode of The Professional Fan coming up.
Yeah.
You haven't seen The Professional Fan yet. Here's a Stay tuned. Well, Mike, what's the next episode going to feature?
So you're telling me you need a running back. That's going to be what this next episode's about. We're going to be going over this very stacked running back class. It's going to be mainly focused on running backs named Ashton Genty because even somebody who doesn't watch football can probably tell you who Ashton Genty is. So yeah, we're going to be going real deep dive into this running back class.
Cool. That'll be cool. And also stay tuned for the fix as well. I think they're going to have another episode coming this week around the college football playoffs. So that'll be good. Sports betting show. So stay tuned for that. Those guys will have you all covered for your sports betting, parlays, and all that. So shout out to Kid Cowboy number 66. Thanks for tuning on in. Said howdy. You got anything to say, Mike?
Howdy.
Howdy. I thought you were going to say howdy back. Howdy to you. Jim Plunkett was a Patriot at first. Don't forget it. I did not expect Jim Plunkett to be in the chat tonight. Did you, Mike?
No.
Bro, you started it. No, I'm just kidding. Signed touchdown Tommy. No. Scatterbo, number 1 running back. Scatterbo would be my choice for a Cleveland running back. I think he'd fit here perfectly. I love Cam Scatterbo.
Yeah, he's jumping off people's boards since college football playoffs.
He was 5th in the Heisman this year too. He's a bad dude. He lit it up all year.
For my running back list, you'll have to wait and see. Stay tuned, like and subscribe, and watch The Professional Fan when it comes out. Get all your running back lists.
Absolutely, like, subscribe, share, and all that good stuff. And Thanks for tuning in tonight, guys. We'll see you in the next one. We're out of here. I'm saluting, Mark. You saluting?
I'm saluting. Yeah, you can't see it, but I am.
I am too. We'll see you guys. We're out of here. Gone.